We're going to be talking tonight about shifting someone else's negative energy. I know every single one of you here tonight have somebody in your life that gives you a hard time. They have a hard time with. And sometimes that negative energy that's coming at you is difficult for you to deal with. So you probably feed into that other person's negativity, whether or not you even know you're doing it. And I'm going to show you how that works tonight. So do me a favor and drop your name into the chat for me. Tell me where you're from and what brought you here. And if there's someone in your life whose negative energy you want to shift, just put that in there. Say like friend, husband, wife, whatever. Just put that in there. Just so I have an idea of what we're working with for tonight. And my hope is to help you to stay grounded, especially those of us who are Christians, to stay grounded in Jesus and try to have peace, even in the midst of some of us are dealing with grief, some of us are dealing with trauma, some of us are dealing with stress. All of us probably have some goals that we would like to see accomplished. And when we're dealing with other people's negative energy, that can really get in our way. So I want you to be able to have peace in the middle of all of that stuff. So that's why I'm here tonight, because I want to help you. Now, this work is personal for me. And here you have a picture of me. I'm like 8 or 9 years old here. I'm at the Mist of the Maid here with my mother and my 2 brothers. And I didn't know it, but I am about to lose my mother and my stepfather, who is the one that took this picture. I'm going to lose them to violent deaths within the next year, year and a half of when this picture was taken. And I want to tell you why the work that I'm doing tonight matters so much to me, because after facing my own seasons of grief and trauma, and now walking hundreds and thousands of people through theirs, I learned how easy it can be to get pulled into someone else's pain, and how freeing it can be when you and I can learn to step back from other people's negative energy and not let it affect us the way that it does right now. And let me just tell you, I had no idea how bad it was. I had no idea how bad it was for me. I don't know how bad it is for you, but for me, I didn't realize it was that bad until I took this assessment. And here's what this assessment said. It took me about 5 minutes to answer the questions, and this is what the computer spit out to me. It told me that 55% of the time, I was feeling things like empathy, gratitude, and curiosity, joy, creativity. Those of us who are Christians would say I was living in the spirit, maybe, right? 55% of the time, but 45% of the time, this was back in 2023 when I took this, 45% of the time, I was struggling with stress, grief, anxiety, frustration, maybe even anger, lots of negative emotions almost half of the time. Now, I was trying to help other people during that stretch. It was, if you remember, like COVID time, it was maybe toward the end of some of the things that were happening with COVID. And I was working hard to try to help people because a lot of people needed help during that time. But I didn't know how to be present with those people in their pain without absorbing a lot of it onto myself. And what do you think was getting in my way? Well, I can tell you now what was getting in my way, because now I know what I didn't know before. Here are the 9 things that could have potentially gotten my way. And some of them got in my way in a big time way. Some of them not so much, but I'll just kind of go over them briefly here. Maybe I was avoiding tough conversations with some of the people I was working with because I didn't want to rock the boat. That's the avoider saboteur. Sometimes I felt controlled by the other person's need to control things. Like they would interrupt me and they would say stuff, and I was feeling controlled by their controller that was trying to control the conversations. Maybe I was getting worn out by some people because their hypervigilance was so high. They were always on the lookout for bad things that could happen, even with me. And I've been working with them and helping them for months or years. And yet they were still worried that something bad was going to happen, that I was going to do something bad to them. And people pleasing, overdoing it to please people, and then maybe getting resentful when the other people didn't really reciprocate or didn't appreciate when I bend over backwards for them. That's the pleaser saboteur. And I'm kind of just walking through the ones here that are on your screen. Sometimes I would buy into someone else's victim mentality and I would sit with them and wallow with them in their misery of their victimhood. Other times I would be restlessly trying to find just the right therapy model for this particular client. I'd be on my bookshelf over here, pulling off books to see what can I do to help this person, and really restless about that. This is the biggest one for me, is that stickler part of me that likes to measure everything. How good am I doing as a counselor? How good am I doing this conversation? How good am I doing on this webinar? Seeing that I don't measure up to my own expectations and focusing a lot of times on details that don't really matter. That's the stickler saboteur. And then sometimes getting sidetracked by people who focus on rational thinking and trying to over-explain things to those kinds of people because they are looking for some rational explanation for things. That's the hyper-rational saboteur. And then sometimes I would chase some imaginary ladder of success, trying to be like the Michael Phillips of counselors, like bring on the Olympic medals, right? I'm going to do something heroic here. That's the hyperachiever saboteur. And then the last one here that I'll talk about is that's all of them. That's all 9 of them. So you might want to know which one of those is messing with you the most. I knew I had some of these, but I had no idea how strong they were. It was a blind spot for me. So do me a favor. My friend Quinn here, he's an intern with Check Your Compass, our counseling ministry. He's going to drop into the chat a link, and you can go to our free assessment and find out which of these saboteurs are messing with you the most. Or if you have your camera, you can point it at that scan me code in the right-hand corner of the screen there, and you can go on your phone, and then afterwards, later after this, you can go ahead and take that assessment. It's free. And actually, Quinn and I like to give people a free session to help them understand their top saboteur, how it's impacting them, and also help you dream a little bit about what life would be like if that saboteur wasn't messing with you as much as it is today. And Quinn and I can dream with you because both of us have been through a program that helped us kind of tame these saboteurs. And we'll talk a little bit about that tonight, especially at the end. Have you ever felt hijacked by someone else's emotions? Tonight, you're going to learn a process to shift the energy without you losing your own peace. Maybe you're around someone who's stressed, or maybe you're around someone who's grieving. Maybe you're grieving, or maybe you're around someone who's angry, and suddenly you start to feel off too. You ever notice that? It's not your imagination. And today I'm going to show you a simple process of how to shift that energy without being drained. So the emotional pain points that a lot of us carry is we get exhausted with this kind of thing. And we often feel powerless in our interactions with other people because we can't change them. Sometimes we feel guilt and shame. Other times we feel isolated, or we feel conflict with other people. And a lot of times we find ourselves being reactive. Like, instead of being active and acting in a situation, we find ourselves just reacting to whatever the other person is doing. And for those who are walking through trauma or grief or ongoing stress, these emotions probably seem really familiar to you. But when others around us are hurting too, what happens? It multiplies the load on us. We're carrying stuff, and then the people we're around are carrying stuff. And so sometimes we find ourselves carrying their stuff too. So let's talk about why this happens. Emotions are actually contagious. I don't know if you knew that. And the reason they're contagious is this thing called mirror neurons. This is something that happens in your brain. So if I'm on here tonight and I'm excited and I'm pushing the energy, a lot of you are going to get excited. And the energy is going to come up for you. But if I get on here and I start talking slow, and I start telling you about all the awful things that have happened in my life, your mirror neurons probably are going to go there with me. So the idea here is if someone else is stressed, your mirror neurons are probably going to calibrate you to that person. You're probably going to get stressed. If the other person's calm, your mirror neurons are probably going to bring you to attune with them and for you to also be calm. We're actually wired to pick up on other people's energy through these mirror neurons. But the good news is that we can train our minds to stop absorbing all the stress from other people and to start spreading calm. So we can see something different happening in the dynamics of our relationships. Now, the thing I'd say is before you try to shift anyone else's mood, I would encourage you to start by shifting yourself. Start by shifting yourself. The thing is, I help people all the time, and a lot of times I get the sense that the person that I'm meeting with wants me to change their husband or their boss or their daughter or son or teacher or whatever. And the thing is, obviously, I can't do that. I can barely help the people that I meet with themselves, right? But I can't help anybody beyond them. But the best thing I can do is help you learn how to shift your own energy first. And so the way that we do that is through something that we call PQ reps. PQ stands for positive intelligence. You've heard of EQ, which is emotional intelligence. PQ is positive intelligence. It's the name of a book and also the name of a program that I'm going to show you at the end of this time together. But let me let one more person into the room here. Okay. And these PQ reps are like going into a mental fitness gym. Like if there was a mental fitness gym that you could go into, you would do these repetitions over and over and over, and it would build your brain muscles. That's what we're going to show you how to do tonight. Now, otherwise, what's going to happen is we're just going to reflect the negative energy that other people are giving us if we're not able to do these kinds of things. So let's try these together so that we can help you learn how to drop into that calm, present state. And one of the verses that Quinn and I love to use whenever we're talking about this is one of the Psalms where it says, "Be still and know that I am God." I love that verse. Be still and know that I am God. Sometimes I just pray that as a prayer. Be still when I'm breathing in and know that you are God on the out breath. And I'll just pray that for a while. I usually do that on my way to account whenever I'm going to be counseling somebody and I'm driving over to our retreat center. I just pray that because it helps me, slow down. It helps me be present so I can be present for that person. It also helps me realize that the thing that I'm doing is God's work, not my own. So Quinn, jump on here. I got to figure out how to spotlight you so people can see you on the recording and also in this meeting. So let me try that.
Hopefully that's working. All right. How's it going? I'm
Can
Quinn.
everybody see Quinn? Yeah, great. I did it.
Perfect. All right. No, yeah, let's definitely start doing some peaky reps to just like shift our attention away to some of the stuff that Dr. Capetta is talking about. So I invite all of you to close your eyes with me and we'll transition into some peaky reps. So you're going to be shifting your attention away from your busy thoughts, and begin to focus on your body and different physical sensations within your body. So feel the weight of your body on your seat. Feel the weight of your feet on the floor. Now, gently rub two fingertips against each other with such attention that you can feel the fingertip ridges on both fingers. Notice all the different textures that God's created you with. Now, shifting a little, begin gently rubbing all the fingertips of one hand against the fingertips and palm of the other and feel all the different sensations of touch. Take a few deep breaths and notice the rising and falling of your chest or stomach with each breath. Let go of thoughts as they come and just refocus on being in the present moment. Bring your attention now to the sounds around you and notice the ones that are furthest away. Now, bring your attention to the sounds closest to you, perhaps even the sound of your own breathing. Now, I want you to open your eyes and let your vision rest on a single object in the room. Observe its shapes, edges, and textures, seeing it for the first time in great detail. See shapes, textures, and colors in great detail. Now I want you to reclose your eyes. And First Peter 5, 6 through 7 says, humble yourselves, therefore, under the mighty hand of God. Cast your anxieties upon him, for he cares for you. Begin to label different things in your mind, whether it be small or large, that you're grateful for, and try getting a list of 5 or 6 of them. Begin to reflect on why you're thankful for these things. Now shift your attention back to the rising and falling of your chest and stomach with each breath. All right, that's it for PQ. You can open your eyes. Back over to you, Vinny.
Thank you, Quinn. Appreciate your help with those. So as I said, those are PQ reps. They come from a program called Positive Intelligence. That's where Quinn and I learned them. I would love to know what you noticed while you were doing them, or what you notice now after you've done them. What do you notice happening in your body? Drop me a word or a phrase into the meeting chat there, and I'll read them out for us. What did you notice while you were doing them, or now that you're done doing them, what do you notice? Okay, someone said, I feel peaceful. What else? More relaxed. Relaxed and peaceful. Okay, so the same thing as the first two people. Thank you, calm, and thankful. All right, Quinn, awesome job with those PQ reps. You just activated a part of your brain that you might not have even known was there. It's called this, someone called it the sage part of your brain. So we actually have different parts of our brain, and one part of our brain we call the saboteur part of our brain, because it's the survival part of our brain. We only need it in very rare situations when there's a life and death situation going on there. And so whenever we use that part of our brain when we're not supposed to be using it, it actually sabotages our ability to thrive. So you shifted from your saboteur part of your brain to the sage part of your brain. And if you think about it, every time you have to deal with someone else who's in the survival part of their brain, in the sabotaging part of their brain, your brain's going to want to go there with them, right? Because of the mirror neurons. So that's why these exercises are so important. They're going to switch off the survival part of your brain, that fight or flight, fawn or freeze response that we have when upsetting things are happening. It's going to turn off that part of your brain and turn on the sage part of your brain. So you're going to go from being reactive, whatever's coming at you, to be more present and have presence with that person, just like you just felt just now. So what happened in your brain was this shift, right, to the region of your brain that's calm and wise. And this is the foundation of mental fitness. If you want to be more mentally fit, these are the kind of exercises that you need to do on a regular basis. Now, and this is just a slide to kind of show you what happened. Went from saboteur to sage, reactive to presence. Now, how do you shift someone else's energy once you've shifted your own? There's this 3-step process that I have for you. Okay, the first step is to do PQ reps first. Before you try to do anything, pause and ground yourself. You need to be grounded, because it's a little bit like a lightning rod. If you're not grounded, then you're not going to be able to ground that other person's energy, right? So you have to be grounded first, because you got a lightning bolt in front of you, whatever that lightning bolt is. And you're going to do PQ reps while you're listening to the other person. So if that person is yelling, you can kind of listen for the tone and timbre of their yelling. If they're maybe not yelling, maybe they're ignoring you, you might be able to just sit there. And as Quinn showed us, you can look at something. You can look at their hair. You can look at their facial features. You can look at the color of their eyes. You can look at what they're wearing. Okay. When I first was taught how to do this, I thought this is going to be a disaster. I'm on Zoom all day. If I sit there and I'm looking at people's background, or I'm looking at the color of their shirts or whatever like that, I'm going to be completely distracted. Guess what happened? Instead of zoning out, which is what a lot of us do, I was able to zone into people. And doing these PQ reps while I was talking to people made me more present to them. I heard things that I didn't hear before. I was able to see things that I hadn't seen before, because I really zoned in. And that's what you're going to do here. You're going to do these PQ reps while you're listening to the other person. Rub your fingers together. Pay attention to your breathing. Look at them, listen to them, that kind of thing. You can observe their hair, their eyes, their voice. And that's going to help you stay out of a sabotaging reaction or a saboteur reaction that comes out of that fight or flight part of your brain. And what this is going to do, at the very least, it may not solve all your problems. I can't do that tonight, right? But what we can at least do is keep you from fueling their fire. Have you ever done that when you're talking to somebody and they're upset, and then you start to say things and they start to get more upset? That's what we want to change, that dynamic. And so if we can help you be calm, then that's going to help you be able to be more of that lightning rod. for this person and not put fuel on their fire. So that's step one. You're going to do the PQ reps first. And then the second thing you're going to do is you're going to respond from the sage part of your brain. Okay. And that's that part of your brain that we just turned on with doing those reps together. So here are some tools that you have in that part of your brain. One of them's empathy. How can you empathize with that other person in what they're going through in that moment or in that season? Okay. How can you be curious, not about how this is impacting you in your situation here, but how can you be curious about what's happening between the two of you? How can you be curious about what's happening for that other person? What's going on below the surface? Because you're probably not the first person that they've yelled at or that they've been angry at or that they've ignored. This goes way back in their history. You're not the first person, right? So being curious about that. And then also being creative, trying to come up with creative solutions to how you might be able to solve that situation that the two of you are facing or the conflict that you're facing. So these are some of the tools you have access to in this part of your brain. And this probably sounds hard, but it's not really, because you've done this before. You've been in this part of your brain. You know how this works. We just have to start using it more and more. Okay. So the on step two also, what we're looking for here is to be able to respond not out of the survival brain, but from that sage part of the brain. And here's the thing, not every shift is going to be immediate, okay? But every moment of calm that you display is going to do several things. One, it's going to model resilience. If you have kids and they see you calm under pressure, you're modeling resilience for your kids. You're going to be modeling that for the other people in the situation, which is wonderful because they might pick up on that over time. Number two, you're going to disarm reactivity. The Bible says a soft answer does what? It turns away other people's wrath. When people are upset and you give them a soft answer, it's hard for other people to be upset when you're being nice to them, when you're trying to hold their hand or rub their back or whatever, right? So you're going to disarm other people's reactivity because you're not going to give them anything to react to, right? You're going to be calm. You're going to be relaxed. And so that's going to disarm other people. And then the third thing it's going to do is to create space, which is important in relationships, because usually when we're having a tough time with somebody, we just up the ante, right? Someone says something to me and I'm like, boy, that's 5 pounds of hurt they just gave me. So what do you think I do? I give them 10 pounds of hurt because they gave me 5 pounds. Now I've just given them 10. What do you think they're going to do next? They're going to go to 15 or 20. And so things just start to get out of control. So we want to create space where there can be more calm for us and for them. And it's probably not going to be immediate, but hopefully these are some of the things that we start to see happen. So what I want you to do is I want you to think of a recent moment when someone was negative in your presence and you reacted in a way that you're not proud of. I want you to think about what could have changed, what could have been different. All right, so take a moment, think of someone who recently came to you with negativity, and let's walk it through those 3 steps. What would have shifted if you had done those PQ reps? If you would have responded from more of a sage place, if you had been having empathy for them, having curiosity about them and the situation, and also finding some creative ways to deal with that situation or to help that person with their problem in that moment. Tell me in the chat, what do you think would have been different if you would have done that in that previous situation? Give me a word or a phrase there into the chat. Okay. The situation could have been calmer for everyone involved. It would have been disarming. It would have been de-escalating. What else? Disarming. Okay. And what does that look like when that other person is disarmed? What do you notice? How would you notice that someone is disarmed? How would you notice that a situation has de-escalated? See if you can drop some of those things for me, just so we can get some more flavor and color for this. What do you notice when someone else is disarmed? What do you notice happening with their body? What do you notice with their the emotions that they show? So people are more calm, they're more understanding. These situations would be calmer, there'd be less yelling, or the stopping of yelling, or anger would decrease. Sometimes we see people's voices are reduced. There's less escalation. Okay. So maybe it would be helpful if one of us here shared just the headlines of your situation, and then we walked it through the empathy, the curiosity, creativity. So if someone's willing to, I just want to let you know we're recording this, which we will share on YouTube, and we're live on Facebook. So we're not going to show your face on, but your voice will be on if you come off of mute. So if you're willing to come off of mute, you can raise your hand, or if you're on camera, you can wave your hand. If you'd rather not share vocally, you can drop your situation in the chat and we'll work from there. So it's totally up to you how you want to do it. But I'm just looking for the headlines, like tell me what the situation was, and we'll walk through that. That way we get the full picture of how this works. And somebody want to give me the headlines of your situation? Like, it was me and my wife, and she was upset about such and such, or something like that. Okay. I have a 16-year-old daughter, and I think that says it all. Okay. How did you find yourself being reactive to the 16-year-old? What was going on inside of you that was difficult? Just give me a sentence or two there. What's the hardest thing for you to deal with your 16-year-old? Just give us a word or a phrase there. Okay. I feel when she has a bad day, I feel her energy, and sometimes I match it. Okay, so your daughter has a bad day. Now, let's pretend that you were able to do some of these PQ reps that we just showed you tonight. And let's see how you might bring empathy to a daughter who's had a bad day. So everybody here now, let's drop some stuff into the chat there. What are some of the most loving and compassionate things you can think to say to a 16-year-old girl who's had a bad day? What are some things that we might say that might be empathetic, where we could put ourselves in her shoes and share some love and compassion with her? Drop something into the chat there. Okay, we could tell her that we understand what she's going through if we do. And we want to be careful here. We want to make sure we're not doing false positivity, right? If we do understand where she's coming from, that would be a perfect thing to do, is to say, I understand. Regardless, we can say, tell me how you feel. We can invite her into conversation. I try to walk with her in her situation. I can hear that was hard. Okay. That sounds hard. I'm sorry. Great. These are all great empathetic things that we could say. What would you say to the mom who's having a tough time with her 16-year-old? What are some empathetic things we could say to her? Like if we were sitting around in a circle right now, and somebody stood up, a mom stood up and said, I'm having trouble with my 16-year-old. What could we say empathetically to that person? That sounds hard. I'm sorry. What else? What could we say to the mom? I can relate. Mhm. Well, I have two teenage daughters, and I have one that's past teenage, so I can relate, Barbie. All right. Um, what what else? What else would we say to the mom? We're with you. We're here with you tonight. We feel your pain. And We will pray for you. You know, we're holding space for you tonight. And yeah, this stage won't last forever, right? This is a stage, a 16-year-old stage, and it is going to pass. Okay, now let's think about the second one, because the first one was empathy. The second one was curiosity. Now, how would curiosity help us as we think about how this 16-year-old had a bad day? What are some things that we might be curious about that day? I'm assuming this child probably went to school today. So how might we be curious about what's going on in the experience of this 16-year-old? What are some things that we might look for or ask about? Yeah, we could ask what happened. What else? We might see that there's a pattern of sadness or grief, and that might need some kind of attention. That might need counseling, something like that. I wonder if you're feeling hurt by someone today. Sometimes teenagers respond really well to a drop-down menu. Is it this? Is it this? Is it this? Is it this? Sometimes they don't want to come out and say whatever the thing is, but if you give them a drop-down menu, I found, sometimes you'll get more out of them. If you ask them, is it this, this, or this? Okay, good question. All right, so we're curious. And what if some of us are older here, right? So what if we were curious about what it's like to be a 16-year-old today than it was 10 years ago, 20 years ago, 30 years ago? Okay. We could ask if she feels safe at school. Maybe something's going on there and she's being bullied. Okay. So being curious, think about when you're being curious, like you're like a kid at the beach and you're picking up all the rocks and all the shells, you're looking under them, you're trying to see, what can I find here? That's the kind of thing here we want to do with our brain when we're dealing with someone else's negativity. And then the third thing is now creativity. What are some creative solutions? Let's say she is being bullied at school, or she is having sadness and grief because of a loss. What are some creative things that we might come up with that we might be able to do with her, or recommend, or do ourselves to help the situation? Throw out your ideas, even if it sounds silly, just throw it into the chat there. Sometimes it takes some silly responses for us to get this part of our brain going. So we're not going to judge any of these responses. We're just going to come up with ideas. All right. So we could do PQ reps with that other person. All right. I've taught most of the people in my family how to do PQ reps. So that would be good. We could do something fun with her. We could do breathing together. We could draw together. We could do journaling. So there's lots of things we could do with that person that is bringing the negative energy. Some things would be more appropriate than others, but here we're talking about a 16-year-old. All these ideas are appropriate. All right. So we might listen to some music that she likes. That's a great way to connect with teenagers. Listen to some music that they like. Ask them about the songs, ask them about what the things mean to them, go for a walk together. All right. So those are the kinds of things that you can do. I want to take a moment and see if you have any questions or comments on what we've said tonight so far. What questions or comments do you have? If you want to say something out loud, just hit the raise your hand button, or if you're on video, just wave your arm around and we'll get you unmuted. Otherwise, you can just drop it into the chat. Quinn, I'll invite you in too. This is the first time you've heard me talk about this. So if there's anything you want to say, jump in. One of the questions here is, what if it escalates anyway? So despite our best efforts to calm ourselves and to maybe use empathy and curiosity and creativity with that other person, what if they still continue to escalate? What do we do then? Sometimes we need to remove ourselves from situations like that. We just remove ourselves. We can, instead of saying you need a timeout, you tell them you need a time. So instead of me saying you need a timeout, I'm going to say I need a timeout, and I'm going to remove myself from the situation. Okay. And I'm going to go into a place where I can be in a quiet space, and I'm going to do some PQ reps. I'm going to go to a safe place. I have a video in my mind of one of the safest places in the world that I can think about, and I'm going to go there to that video. And for one of the things that I find helpful is doing tapping. So I'm going to close my eyes and I'm going to watch that video of the safest place in the world I can think of. And I'm just going to tap away on my shoulders here. What that's going to do is it's going to engage my body, and it's like a super PQ rep. Go into that safe place. After a few minutes, my body will feel safe. It might take 5 minutes. It might take 10 minutes. Eventually, my body's going to feel safe, and I can go back in there and I can go deal with that person again. But sometimes we need to take a time out ourselves. All right. What other questions or comments? Or if you have an idea for that person of what happens when things escalate, you can drop a comment there. Someone just said shopping helps. Laugh out loud. Okay. How do you invoke the PQs with someone who isn't escalate or angry, but their demeanor or body language is negative? So sometimes what we can do is there are different things that we can do to just attune ourselves with other people. So if we're talking like about a young person, I don't know if that young person, like if you played that game with them where they put their hands on your hands and you try to tap them before they move it, or just grabbing their hands and you kind of seesaw back and forth with them. There's lots of different things you can do physically that are kind of playful, where you can attune yourself to the other person, just attune yourself to where they are. And sometimes doing things like that will kind of break people out of that sort of place where they're kind of are flat or they're like depressed or sad. Sometimes doing something playful like that will kind of break them out of it. But at the least, what it does is it connects them with another person in that sadness or in that depression or in that state where they're just feeling really, really flat. They get to have someone to be with them without having to say anything. And so there are a bunch of little things like that that you can try. If it's a young person or if it's someone who is open to that kind of thing. So that's one thing that I would say. The other thing is, sometimes it's okay, I guess, just to be with somebody in silence and to just be there with them, even if they're not giving us much. And it's called like the be with factor. And so sometimes people won't remember like what we said, but they'll remember that we were just there with them during those times when they didn't have words for things. I mean, this happens a lot in the counseling session when I ask somebody something and they say, I just don't even have words for this, right? And we just sit with that together. So those are a few things. Anyone else have that experience of someone in your life who's not angry or escalated, but their demeanor and body language is negative? Maybe they're even ignoring you or just kind of flat. Things that you have done that have been helpful? Feel free to drop some comments. Great questions, everyone. What I want to finish up with is something I think is probably the most important thing that I'm going to say tonight. And that is that if you want to have lasting change in dealing with people who are negative, here's what that requires. It requires about 20% of insight. And I've given you enough insight that you can really run with tonight. But the thing is, you have to build the mental muscles. I mentioned Michael Phillips earlier, right? Great swimmer. Now, he could have read books about swimming and gotten that 20% of insight of what it's like to be an Olympic swimmer. But the way that Michael Phillips actually changed his body to be able to swim faster than anyone else is the mental muscle, that the muscle that he built getting in the pool and doing certain exercises over and over and over and over again. And that's what it's going to require from you. So you're going to have to do probably about 15 minutes a day of those exercises that Quinn showed you earlier. 15 minutes a day for 6 to 8 weeks will literally open up your brain to change. You will start to see less gray matter in the survival part of your brain and increased gray matter in that part of your brain that we call the sage brain. You can literally see this on an MRI with people that have been through the kind of programs that I'm talking about tonight. So your old patterns will take over if you don't build that mental muscle. And for most of us, the old patterns will take over without support. Like, I'm going to show you the results I got on that assessment that I showed you earlier. I'm going to show you what happened at the end of the program that I did, but it was only because there was support. There was a group of people there. I could never have done that on my own. I'm going to show that to you in a minute. Imagine if this became automatic for you, that instead of escalating other people, instead of you getting escalated and reactive, you actually felt calm and relaxed like you did earlier. How would life feel for you if that happened more and more? You were less and less reactive and more calm, more peaceful, more relaxed. What would life be like for you? Imagine conversations that used to drain you now become moments of presence and peace. Imagine staying calm, even in grief or when you're triggered. And that's what we built into the program that I'm going to tell you about. If any of this resonated with you tonight, I'd love to show you what the full journey looks like. But before I do that, let me show you what happened to me after 6 weeks of mental fitness exercises. This is the assessment that I showed you at the very beginning. 55% of the time in my sage brain, 45% of the time in my survival brain, or the sabotage part of my brain, right? And here's what happened after 6 weeks of doing the practices that I showed you. In addition to that, learning about these saboteurs, learning about the inner critic, the judge, learning about how my sage brain works, learning how to be more present. What happened was I went to 71% of the time in my thriving brain and 29% of the time in my survival brain. Now, the goal actually is 75% in your thriving brain, because once you get to 75%, there's sort of an upward vortex that happens. Just like, when you've been depressed or you've been really sad, there's like a downward vortex that pulls you down. It feels like it's pulling you under. This is a positive vortex that pulls you up. And we know as Christians that a lot of that has to do with the influence of the Holy Spirit in our lives, because it's the Spirit of Christ that's lifting us up where we could never go ourselves. So there were 2 people in my life that I was discontent with. And after the 6 weeks, I noticed, and I looked back over the 6 weeks, and that discontent had nearly evaporated. I couldn't even find it anymore. And I had been discontent every single day before doing this program with these 2 people. But don't take my word for it. This is some of what we have seen when we ask people after the fact, after they've gone through this program. 85% of people are happier. 91% of people manage stress better. 83% of people improve their own confidence, their self-confidence, their ability to get things done. 82% improve their relationships. I think that's why we all came here tonight, right? 84% are better at conflict management, which is, I think, another reason some of us came tonight. 97% improve their ability to empathize with themselves and with others. And on the performance end of things, 76% of people are able to develop other people. Some of you were talking about your children and you're trying to develop them. And then 92% are better at teamwork and collaboration, which is part of what we're talking about with relationships. They require a lot of that. So which result would you want of all the things on that list there? Drop me into the chat which one of those you would want if you were to take a program like this. Which one is the most standing out to you? This is Marlena. Marlena did the program with me. When I did it for the first time, I had no idea what I was getting into. Marlena was in my group and I was actually leading it, even though I had no idea how to lead the group. Marlena got a 100% boost in her mental fitness. And she said, I find myself happy most of the time. She went from 40% of the time in her thriving brain to 80% of the time in her thriving brain. And my stickler was so upset because she got a better result than I did. After a workshop that I led last year, a woman came up to me and she couldn't talk. She brought her husband up with her, and I stood there literally for minutes and she said nothing. And I just stood there waiting for her, looking at her husband, waiting for her to talk. She said, I tried everything. I don't know. She didn't know if I could help her. I didn't know if I could help her. She could barely talk. And she did this 7-week program with me, and she stayed on for some additional stuff afterwards to work with me one-on-one. And here's the email that she sent me. She said, at my yearly physical on Friday, I passed the mental health screening for the first time in the last 6 years. Some of my answers were not at all when they used to be almost all the time. Questions like, how often do you find yourself unable to control your negative thoughts? She learned through these PQ reps how to stop all her negative thoughts and all her negative feelings. She got better at that. She built these muscles that we were talking about tonight. And so we took her through this program called Unlocking Your Mental Fitness. It's the same program that I went through back in 2023. And then I've built some additional components to it. And so I'm going to share that with anybody who wants to learn more about that. But first, I'd like to say a prayer. And I know some of you have already gone through our program, and some of you have already heard about it. So I'm going to say a prayer. If you want to drop off the call, you're welcome to. And for the rest of the people who want to learn more about the Unlocking Mental Fitness, I'll stick around and take about 10 minutes to show that to you. All right. So here's the prayer. This is actually called the Serenity Prayer. This is used in a lot of the anonymous groups. Quinn, do you want to jump in and help us with the prayer?
Yeah, I can do that. All right. God, grant me the serenity to accept the things I cannot change, the courage to change the things I can, and the wisdom to know the difference. Living one day at a time, enjoying one moment at a time, accepting hardship as a pathway to peace. Taking, as Jesus did, the sinful world as it is, not as I would have it, trusting that you will make all things right if I surrender to your will, so that I may be reasonably happy in this life and supremely happy with you forever in the next.
Awesome. Thanks, Quinn. If you'd like to reach out to me, I just put my email into the chat there. If you're planning on leaving right now, but you want to connect with me, just grab that from the chat. And thank you for being here. If you're headed out, God bless you. Have a wonderful Wednesday night. And for the rest of you, I'm going to talk about unlocking your mental fitness. This is called Unlocking Your Mental Fitness Program. And one of the key things that we do is we give everybody access to a special app. Now, you can have this on your phone or tablet. You can also, there's a web version if you want to do this on your computer. But that app, if you bought it from the company that we get it from, it costs $995 just to get that. So that's the value that you're going to get. And you're going to have full access to this app. And it's going to support you getting that daily practice. That 15 minutes that I talked about, it's going to show you how to do that. It's going to coach you through that, maybe 2 or 3 minutes at a time throughout the day. It's going to help you build up to that 15 minutes, a little bit at a time during the day. The second thing is that we're going to give you daily coaching in the app. So every day we're going to give you a daily focus of the day in the app. And you're going to have guided coaching there. And also you'll have access to me. And a lot of times Quinn is also in that group. You have access to him. The two of us will be in the app kind of coaching you and giving you pointers. If things aren't going well for you, we'll give you different ways to do the different exercises that are there. So we're kind of helping you throughout the week. And we'll be doing that for a total of 7 weeks. So every day for 7 weeks, you have access to us. And we're going to also give you weekly coaching sessions. That is like, we meet typically on Monday nights at 6:30 Eastern Standard Time. And I'll put that up a little bit later so to remind you. But we have those weekly coaching sessions. They're about an hour long. And so you'll join me in a small group each week. We'll do that live, and we'll be integrating Christian faith into the coaching process so we can kind of supercharge it for you. And we'll walk you through whatever the challenges are that you faced the previous week or that you see coming that next week. We're going to put it all in the context of the things that you're learning and show you how to tackle those challenges based on the content of the week. And we're going to give you a couple of assessments. We're going to give you the saboteur assessment to show you which one of those 9 are messing with you the most. And we'll also give you a brain assessment, that one that I showed you where things shifted in my brain. We're also going to give that to you so that you can take that at the beginning and then take it at the end and see what happens over the 7 weeks. So these powerful assessments will help you learn how to start to neutralize those saboteurs. And then what we're going to also do is give you a PDF and a audiobook of the Positive Intelligence book. And this is going to give you all the content of the things that you're going to want to learn. Pretty simple, really simple stuff. The kind of stuff I shared tonight is kind of the language that's used in there. It's not like it's not hard to understand. Like even I can understand it. They brought it down to the bottom shelves. So you'll get some of these tools, best-selling book, the audio version of that book, and then you'll be able to learn the things that you're going to need to learn week by week. Then we also going to give you access to our small group. Quinn and I usually work with like 7 to 10 people at a time. We're going to give you access to that small group. And also there's a larger PQ community, people who are doing positive intelligence all over the world. I think millions of people have now gone through this program, and it's priceless to be able to connect with that small group and also a larger group of people all over the world. And then what we total up all the value that we're going to give you, it's about close to $5,000. And I've had to get brake jobs before and transmission jobs. And unfortunately, I think I have the transmission job and a brake job at the same time now. And that's cost you over $5,000. So if you think about it, this is like a brake job for your brain. We have to stop all the negative thoughts and all the negative feelings in their track as soon as they start. Because once they start and they get going, they're really hard to stop. It's like a runaway train. Right? So we got to give you a brake job. We got to show you how to stop those negative thoughts in their tracks, like we did for that woman who was taking that mental health survey that her doctor gave her. And we also need to give you a transmission job. I only shared with you 3 of the gears in the thriving part of your brain tonight, but there are 2 more. And we walk you through how those 5 work. Those literally are the transmission of your brain to get you going where God intends for you to go. So this is a 7-week program. The next one starts on May 19th of this year. And that's going to happen on Monday nights at 6:30 p.m. And those meetings happen for 1 hour. And then if you can't make one of those meetings, we'll record it and we'll send it to you afterwards so you don't miss anything. The cost of this program is $9.95. So if you want to reach out to me, my information is there, and I'll also put it into the chat for you. Gwen, why don't you come out here and tell people what the program did for you? What was the biggest impact?
Yeah, definitely. So my first time going through as a participant, I want to say about roughly the same, like 55% of my thoughts were like self-sabotaging myself. And I like really resonate with the thing of like, wow, I feel happy most of the time now. Like, and also I was doing PQ in a spot in my life where there's like lots of ups and downs. And I was like, wait, this is actually like keeping me really, really anchored to just like being present. And I feel like most of my mental health struggles growing up were like, wow, I can never find a firm foundation or good footing, whether it be like from keeping a healthy schedule, doing decent in school, my work life balance with jobs. And I like found PQ to be something like I was like, whoa, like this is keeping me consistent and walking forward. Like obviously there's the occasional bad day still, but at the same time, it's like, wait, yeah, my thoughts are still way more happy than like anger and being sad or filled with shame. Like in my mind was so wired towards like people pleasing, like that's my main saboteur. Or and I found like my ability to like give myself up for other people like came back in this way that wasn't like draining me and leaving me with resentments at the end.
Thanks, Quinn. Appreciate you jumping in here. Somebody asked in the chat, would this program be for teenagers? The one that I run, I wouldn't suggest for teenagers because it's always adults. But there probably are some groups for teenagers, and if you want to reach out to me after the fact, I can see if some of my colleagues definitely run groups for teens that would be appropriate for a teen. So you can reach out to me about that. One of the things that we can do, though, is if you do the program, I believe we can give access to like up to 4 family members or 4 other people like in your family or friends that could also do the program along with you. They wouldn't be able to come to the weekly meetings with me, but you could be interacting with them on the things that you're learning, and they could be going through it at the same time. So you could do that with your team that way. If you did our program, you could she could have access to the app and you could be having communication with her. But if you want her to have her own group experience, we'd have to find a different group for that. Any other questions? Feel free to raise your, I think I can hit the button on my side to make it so that you all can unmute yourself. So if you have a question, feel free to unmute yourself. I'm going to go ahead and stop the recording that we're doing now in case you have questions you don't want to have recorded. But let me just put up this last thing on the screen here. If you want to participate in this program, you can scan the code there in front of you, or you can go to this link here, and I believe this is connected to we have some people or some companies that provide, I don't know how that's coming through on the chat, looks weird, but we have 3 companies that will provide the funds up front for you so that you can pay for this, and then you can pay them like over 3 or 4 months without interest. Or if you want to go out like 6 months or 12 months payment plan, then you have to pay some interest. But all of that should be there if you follow that link or scan that code. You should be able to find out what those partners are and what the terms are.